Welcome to the Simply His Coffee Shop. Today we are going to be talking about Women's History Month for the month of March. It's going to be a wonderful conversation, and I'm in studio today with Mom and Cherise.
Hey.
So what is Women's History Month, Cherise?
It has its roots in the labor movement of the early 20th century. It was first celebrated March 8th of 1911.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's been
a while.
It's been a hot minute, yeah. The day initially commemorated a strike by female garment workers in New York in 1908.
Oh, wow.
And it became a focal point for the global recognition of women's achievements. So the women's labor movement sought to address issues to advocate for better wages, reasonable working hours, improved workplace conditions for women, right?
Okay.
So in 1981, senators co-sponsored a congressional resolution that requested President Ronald Reagan proclaim the week beginning March 7th, 1982 as Women's History Week. That's when that first started.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I didn't look into why it's now a month, but that's okay. I'll take it.
Did they happen to specifically specify why the month of March?
I wonder if it had to do with the strike, when that strike
that
was
makes
in
sense.
March.
I was just thinking since Mother's Day is in May,
Yeah.
it would have seemed to, but I guess not all women in history are mothers, so March works.
Right.
Yeah, not all
Here we
of them
go.
are mothers.
And it's my birthday month, so we'll take it. Let's celebrate me more.
Okay, March it is. I'll take that. Happy birthday.
Right? So we thought we'd just talk about, since we are a women's show, talk
Right.
about some women in history since it
Right.
is Women's History Month. There's so many women throughout history
Right.
that have changed so much about what even life means today.
Right, they paved
you
the
know?
way for what we have.
Absolutely. I mean, even back into biblical days,
Yes.
Right.
you know, they helped shape nations. I
Yes,
mean,
they
Queen
did.
Esther,
Right.
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
she was born in for such a time as this.
Yes.
To save an
Absolutely.
entire nation.
Yep, that her influence is still paying off today.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I love those stories.
Well, and Deborah was one of the judges, you know, so she helped shape the nation of Israel, you know, with judging the people, and she was a woman of God. So, I mean, we have so many people that we can look up to, and I'm kind of nerdy when it comes to, like, biographies and finding
Yeah.
people in history in general. Fascinating a little bit. So, like, Mother Teresa, she totally fascinates me, and I'm always reading stuff up on her
that's
and
cool.
you know, trying to learn from what her life was and where she came from. So
Right.
biographies have always been something I love to read, especially as a teenager and stuff.
Yeah.
Just to try and learn more about them as a person. Who were they? What were they like? What was their favorite thing to do? What was
Right.
their personality like? Because, you know, you don't know. And there's nobody alive with some of these women
Right.
to go and ask, hey, what were they like?
Right.
Were they
Yeah.
fun? Did they laugh a lot? What did their laugh sound like?
Right.
You know, were they loving? You know, it's just interesting to talk about the different women that have
nuances.
made such big impacts
Oh, yeah, for sure.
on the world.
Well, you think about it. I mean, women in missionary work.
Oh, man.
You know, throughout history, Christian women have been active in missionary work, spreading
Yes.
the gospel globally. You know,
Right.
You were part of that.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a big deal. And you've seen women in missionary work
Yeah,
and how, you know, impactful that is.
it is. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
It does. Growing up, had a lot of grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles that were not blood related to me
Right.
at all, but they were women that I've looked up to, you know,
Yeah. in the
that have
field with you.
impacted me because of the way that they acted, you know, or
Right.
how they carried themselves. It's incredible.
Yeah. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They make such an impact. And you hear stories going back, you know, of what their ministry was. Because, you know, so many places think that women can't minister. They just have to be the stay-at-home
Right.
woman. Or, you know, they're rearing the children. They're cooking the dinner for the husband, even on the mission field to a degree. So
Right.
watching even my own mom and stuff, I mean, we were trekking up on little dirt trails, and we were doing everything that my dad did. You know, she was there to support him, but she also ministered to the mamas in the villages and the kids.
yeah.
And she was the one that would read a Bible story or teach a Sunday school class, you know, for the kids, or, you know, doing a kids church type thing. So it was always really cool to see that.
Yeah. Without that, then, you know, the women and children may
Exactly.
not have gotten, you know, that kind of the gospel taught to them, you know, and lived before them.
Yep.
The exampleship, you know.
Yeah. So it's always incredible to see. So that's why women in history do fascinate me so much, because there's so many of them. I mean, we can pick any number of them.
Right.
So actually on our Facebook page, maybe we should do another poll on that says, who's your favorite
that's a
woman
great
in
idea.
history for the month
Yeah.
of March,
And
and
why.
see what.
Yeah. Let's
that
do
would
it.
be a really fun interactive thing.
Yeah,
so
that would
please
be very
reach
cool.
out if you have somebody that maybe we don't mention, or maybe we haven't even thought of. Because with doing research for this, a movie came out, and I haven't watched it yet, and I've been wanting to watch it, but my life, I don't watch a lot of stuff to a degree that's not with the kids. So if it's not a cartoon,
Right.
basically. But it's called Hidden Figures.
Yeah.
And it's about African American women that worked for NASA,
Yeah.
and they were part of the quote unquote human computers.
Great movie.
I haven't
I've
seen it. Did
and
you
it's-
see it?
Yes, I loved it. I loved every bit of it.
But I mean, things like that just
Yeah.
fascinate me. So when I was doing the research for this, because I didn't know, I knew it was based on true events
Right.
to a degree, not a true story, which
Right.
is different.
Yeah.
But just the idea that it was based on true women that had to go through
Right.
what they had to go
Exactly.
through
Endure.
Yeah.
is just completely fascinating. And then why this woman even wrote the book. But she wrote the book because her dad actually worked for NASA as well. So she went to school with some of these women's kids, and she was seeing their own struggle. So that's why she wrote it. So it's just
Very cool.
Yeah.
incredible to me how that affects even the next generation. Because as a little growing up,
Right.
watching these women
Right.
go through all of that,
Yes.
and then that shaped her
Yeah.
worldview, you know.
So one of the things, you know, we were researching, and a lot of people in our scope will know this name, but, you know, Christian women in general, like in politics kind of. So Corrie ten Boom, you know, and how, you know,
Yes.
she hid and was captured, you know, ultimately by the Nazis. But, you know, something that I didn't know was that she had trained to be a watchmaker, and that she became the first woman to be licensed as a watchmaker in the Netherlands.
Well, that's interesting.
Wow.
That's
I
a
know.
fact we didn't know.
I know, 'cause you know the stuff you normally
Sure,
hear
the
about
heavy
Corrie ten
stuff.
Boom. Yeah, the heavy stuff,
Yeah.
you know, absolutely. You know, being
Interesting.
in a concentration camp and, you know, coming out, and all, you hear that stuff, but I thought, man, you know, and I didn't know either that she had established a youth group, a youth club for teenage girls that provided religious instruction and classes and did performing
Oh,
arts
wow.
and sewing and
Oh, my.
that kind of stuff too. So it's kind of fun when we were doing some research to get some nuggets of stuff
Yeah.
that, you
Some
know.
of the fun things.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah, I was like, because watchmaking, I mean, if you think about it, that's pretty intricate.
It is.
You
These
know.
little weeny tiny parts,
Yeah.
and you have
Yeah.
to have a magnifying to even
Yeah.
see them. How do you even touch
Yeah.
them and hold them?
First woman in the Netherlands.
That's great.
That's very cool. So let's talk about some Christian authors that have influenced us. Some of your favorites. So I have a small list.
You have a small list.
A small list. So Beth Moore, Priscilla Schreier,
Yeah.
Lisa Harper,
Yep.
Joyce Meyer.
Share a little bit about each of these for the listeners.
Well, like, let's say Joyce and Havilah. When you grow up in church, there's not a lot of women ministers that
Yeah.
you saw, right?
Right.
It wasn't like that, for me anyway. It may be for somebody else, but
Well, I think socially now it's a little bit more
acceptable.
acceptable to have somebody that's more of a teacher slash preacher
Right.
that is a female,
Yeah.
thankfully.
No, right, for sure.
But
a-
Joyce was definitely one of the trailblazers.
Oh, for sure. For some reason, I remember her saying when she first came to the Lord and was doing home study groups that she was in like the short, cut-off shorts, smoking cigarettes, and
Oh.
but teaching, right?
Oh my goodness.
I know. You don't think about that, but she, you know,
She had to come from somewhere.
we all do. We all do. But you know, the way that she taught was just like, wow. Okay. You know what I mean? And being at conferences with her is palpable. You know, just the room full of women and what you're experiencing, that you have, like-minded values, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And getting these little nuggets from her. Havilah, we've seen
Yeah.
Havilah a few times. Just the way they teach, and it's just inspiring.
It is.
It's inspiring, and it's like, okay, so I don't just have to be in the nursery, or I don't just have to be...
I don't have to be in this little box.
Right, exactly.
And that's a big thing.
That's what I was going to say. Is I felt like a lot of what women used to be able to do was very limited.
Yeah.
And what you said, Catherine, that nowadays is a lot more acceptable.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing a lot more of these inspirational women leaders
Yeah.
arising and emerging.
Yeah.
One up and coming that I would love to mention is Donna Howell.
Oh, yeah.
We
Even
know
though
her.
she's my daughter and I'm going to advocate for her, she is an amazing woman.
Very much.
Very dedicated to her theology studies. Studied
Oh, yeah.
neck and neck with Mike Heiser. It was fun to watch them talk.
Right.
It was.
They around the dinner table.
Yes, yes. And I just want to put in a word. If you are looking for someone out there, she's going to open up her own program pretty soon.
Yep, the Donna Howell Show,
Yes, and it'll be on our Defenders Insiders.
which I think they're getting ready to announce.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm kind of a little bit of ahead there. Shh, don't
That's
tell
okay.
Joe.
We'll keep it a secret.
In any case, I just want to put in a good word
Yeah.
for her.
That'll be a really
Because she
good
is a
program.
modern,
Exactly.
nowadays, when you're looking through history,
Yeah.
she is one to be watching right
And
now.
no
up and coming.
nonsense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dedicated.
Yeah. If you want like hard-hitting, factual, it's not fluff with Donna.
No,
Right.
Not fluff at all with Donna.
Right.
It's really,
no, it's
really
not.
good.
An author that I really love that is a Christian author, and she does more fiction stuff. And when I was a teenager and early 20s-ish, I read all the time. Like, I mean, I didn't see a book I couldn't read in a day or two.
Right.
So one of the ladies that I loved most of her books was Francine Rivers. She has incredible books. She wrote one, And the Shofar Blew, and it's about a pastor and how he gets caught up in the whole megachurch type thing, and how his wife was obedient. She was a good wife and she was being his partner and stuff, but then as the church grew, her and the son kind of kept getting swept to the side, and then he ends up having an affair, and it was just this whole, but the way that she writes this book, it's just incredible. She's really good. And then one of her other series that I really enjoyed, it's more of a historical piece, was the Mark of the Lion series. And it's a great series. It's a 3-book deal, and it's about the early Christians and the fall of Jerusalem, and then how the people were taken into slavery, and
Wow.
it follows the story of this little slave girl.
Oh, wow.
And so it kind of goes through.
Yeah.
It's really cool, but she has great books.
Yeah.
Great books. I think a lot of people know one of her most popular ones because it was turned into a movie, was Redeeming Love. So some of those books, and I've always thought, especially The Atonement Child, though, and The Shofar Blew, those have always kind of stuck out in my head as people need to be aware of that, because you don't always know on the surface what's
Right.
going on.
No,
You
right.
know?
Right.
So they kind of helped shape me to a degree.
Yeah. That's very
That's good
cool.
to know.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a little plug for her. She's a great author. Her books are very easy to read, too.
So there's one that I found in particular that I thought was kind of cool, just because our church supports a ministry in Africa, Pastor Jeremiah, and Pastor Jeremiah is in the Zulu tribe, okay?
Okay.
And he'll be back at church here in February, coming back up when he's itinerarying back here. But this individual, her name was Paulina, and she was born in 1858, passed away in 1942. And I'll kind of read this just because I don't know it, since I just found out about it. But the spread of Christianity in modern Africa was largely to the faithful work of women like her. She was the oldest daughter of an African Zulu chief who pledged her at a young age in marriage to the ascending Zulu king. She was 13 whenever...
Wow.
Yeah, 13 years old, she found herself in the king's court and the women's house, so they
Wow.
must have more than one wife.
Yeah.
So, and she came into contact with Christian missionaries, right, while she
Right.
was there, and their message powerfully impacted her at 13 years old, right?
Wow.
And so when the British colonizers provoked a civil war, the Zulu king was forced into exile, in which crushed Paulina's family and their elevated status and wealth and
Sure.
all of that. But her time listening to those missionaries had convinced her of the good news of Jesus Christ. And she became an evangelist who was like laser focused on rebuilding the Zulu people. And early on, she shared the gospel with a British colonizer who had been severely beating his Zulu workers. And he listened to her, and he stopped beating his workers and
kinda
became a
crazy.
Christian, just due to, her ministry. After seeing a change in the colonizer's life, the Zulu people were more receptive to the message, right?
Oh, wow.
See how that would impact?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
2 of the new Zulu king's wives converted due to her preaching in partnership with Dutch missionaries that birthed multiple congregations among the colonizers and the Zulu people. I thought, who's ever heard of her?
No, I know.
You know what I
right?
mean?
Yeah.
Obscure, but so cool,
Absolutely.
Well, and it doesn't take much, to find amazing women like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
You just do simple Google
Do a
searches.
little assignment for the
and
month.
it's fun. Maybe bring
And
your
then
kids and
Facebook us.
family
Yeah.
in on it and just do fun little searches on, hey, find one person this week that's
Yeah.
a woman that's changed history or,
Right.
changed something for everyone,
Right.
changed it for everyone.
That you don't always hear. It's not like the woman at the well or,
Right.
Ruth or,
Well,
all
one
of these.
Bible one that it doesn't get talked about a lot, but she kind of fascinates me as well, is Rahab.
Mm.
So she was the only one in Jericho that was receptive to the Israelite people, and she believed in their God. But, some of the story and the history behind her, and I'd have to go back and
Right.
do even more research on her again to refamiliarize myself with her story. But if I remember right, she was a priestess, and their religion was icky.
Right.
But she somehow in her spirit knew, and she wanted more, and she was searching for God, and she found him, and she got saved and brought out, and then she ended up being Caleb's wife. And him and Joshua were the only 2 that said, yes, we can take him. And so
Okay,
she became his wife after she hid them away. And so, what was her story like?
Right.
What did she go through? How did she
Exactly,
find
right,
Christ
right.
living in such a pagan area,
Right. Right.
So, even just doing a little bit of research on her would be just so
Yeah.
interesting to find out where she came from and what she was doing.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good assignment for, our listeners and viewers that, get on Facebook and message us about, what's an obscure Christian woman in history that, we've not heard about that maybe you're fascinated with. And
Right.
that you've researched and it was important or impactful to you, in your study or your teaching. You may be a Sunday school teacher or, be fascinating and be interesting to hear.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, again, there's just so many, who would have known
Right.
about her?
I know. That's very cool.
And then that so many women have actually written the hymns that we sing, in church, too.
Absolutely.
There are so many of them and their stories and why they wrote the hymns, and it's just so fascinating. I keep
know.
saying that.
It is.
And I'm a broken record on that one, but there's not even really words to describe it, because what are people going to say about you?
Right.
Are they going to find out about your story and, oh,
Right.
their story was so incredible, way down the line, these
Right.
kids are now reading your biography, or they found you on Google and were like, oh, that person was really fascinating. They
Right.
did this, and this is how they grew up, and then this is what happened to them. God is writing your story. We are all works of art, and these women didn't know they
Yeah.
were going to be making an
Right.
impact. They
Exactly.
didn't know what their life was
No,
going to
exactly.
mean, or the heritage that they were leaving behind.
Right.
Right.
Because, even in your own family, who were the people and women in your
Right.
life that helped shape you? Was it a grandma at church that wasn't actually
Right.
your grandma, but everybody called her Grandma Edna or
Right,
whoever it was,
right.
Grandma Eileen? What did they do to affect your life? Was
Yeah.
it somebody at school? Was it a teacher? Joe has some teachers that really impacted
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
and changed
Christian teachers.
the
Yeah.
course of his life, though, too, and helped instill in him, oh, you are special. They
Yeah.
they gave him that sense of accomplishment and that he was more than just the annoying child that he was, you know?
Right.
And that's important. But who has shaped you? That's a great question to ask and to go back and think about too, you know, who are the women, not just in history,
Right.
but in your own history that have been there for you
Part of
and
your
that
fabric.
have exactly that have changed you and made you into who you are today.
I'll share one real quick one. It's more modern and it's an obscure. There will be a few people who know who I'm talking about, but she was one of the very first women's ministries coordinators for the state of Oregon. And she, from what I remember, would get on out of the bus. She would bus her way from Portland to Salem, which where the district office was. And she would come and collect clothing and put them in this little area so that when missionaries came home, they would have clothing to wear.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was her ministry.
Wow.
That was what women's ministries was. Well, anyway, she had this big, you know, that was what she did. She paid her own way to get there, collected all these things, gave them to the missionaries. And there's probably a whole lot more to the story that I'm not remembering for the
Right,
moment. But I want to tell you something that she did to inspire me and to really help me. And it's one of those moments in time where you resonate back to.
Yeah.
So after all of these years, now she's retired and can getting around-ish.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm at this meeting, so we're going to get to meet this lady that has helped to build. This was a women's ministries function, but we're going to meet the lady that kind of helped lay the foundation
Started,
for all
yeah.
of this. And I'm like, I'm rubbing my hands in my spirit. I'm going, okay, she's, oh my gosh, it's going to be so good
Right,
stuff. I just can't wait to hear what she's got to say, and I'm just all geared
Right.
up. And so they introduced her, because they were asking all of the former women's ministries that were present to stand and say something to the ladies. And when it got to her, she stood up. And you want to know what she said? Of course you do.
Of course we do. We're
Everybody did
waiting
that.
with
Just to
bated
make
breath.
sure.
Hanging,
I've got you baited. Okay. She said, be yourself. And I went,
Wait, what?
at first I was like, wait, that's it?
Right?
You come, what? No, tell me how to do these things. Tell me all about it.
Right.
Be yourself. And I tell you what, she just said you can't do it, you know, you can't be anybody else. Be
Yeah.
yourself. And it was just how she said it, and then she sat back down, and I'm like, okay.
Well, that was anticlimactic.
Well, and at the
moment. No, I get it.
At the moment. But I cannot tell you how many times I have resonated back
Oh,
to
of
that
course.
moment
Right.
when I realize I
Yep.
can't be anybody else. I'm stuck with me.
Exactly.
I may as well be the best I
Yep.
can. So that became my prayer, to be the best that I can be.
Right.
And that's still to this day one of my prayers. And
very
I pray
cool.
it more now probably than
Very
ever,
sweet.
is make me a better person.
Yeah.
I want to be there for the moment.
Yeah.
What have I got?
Right.
Nothing. I got you. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it came back to that moment. So she's a modern day woman who, just if you're listening out there or if you're watching, don't underestimate
Right.
the moment that you have to say 2 words,
Right.
because they can be anointed,
Very.
spoken at the right time. So
That's
very,
very true.
very helpful. And then Henrietta, she was my spiritual mom that God gave to me when I was at the district, and we were worked together. She was at the time, the widow ministry director for the state. And I learned a lot from her.
Wow.
And her spirit was just so sweet and loving. But yeah, those are my personal memories.
Very sweet.
So we all have those.
Yeah.
Of course.
So I didn't want to get lost in all of the big, broader spectrum.
Right.
I want to make sure that people remember we have
Oh, yeah.
our own people
Very much.
that in our mind are, like you said, everyday champions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those people who have helped us to shape who we are. And you
Yeah.
are shaping those around you.
Well, and that's
Hopefully it's a good thing.
exactly, that's something that we need to be aware of and strive for, you know, is what kind of an influence are you being
Right.
to those around you? What kind of an influence are you being even on your own kids? Because, I mean, we all have bad days, raising my hand. That would be me, you know, and I may not treat my children the way that I should. Not that I'm being
Horrible.
mean or I'm a horrible person, but you know, we all have bad days. So maybe I
Right.
snap at them or I discipline them in a way that maybe was overly over and I didn't need to react the way that I did. You know, there's
Yeah.
always stuff. What are we showing our children? And one thing that I have done and I still do is if I have done something like that,
Yeah.
it's okay to apologize,
Right.
especially to your children. Now, sometimes, obviously, depending on the situation, you don't have to apologize for every little thing.
Right.
But if I am in the wrong
convicted of it.
and I'm realizing, you know what, I didn't handle that the way that I should have, I can go to my child and say, hey, Mommy got upset about this, and this is the thing. I did not react the way that I should have, and I apologize, and I'm sorry that I did whatever it was. And I think that's helped them because then they understand, okay, Mommy can make mistakes too. She will fix it and she will acknowledge it, and then hopefully
Good example.
I don't do that again. But then it teaches them, you know, that, okay, we can apologize and it's okay to not be right all of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
That's
so
impossible.
but be aware of what you're doing. Like I had seen something on social media not too long ago about a lady that she was sitting in her car and doing just, you know, a quick video thing and talking about how her daughter was sick, but then throwing a fit at Target because she was running out of diapers. She's trying to get the groceries out of the cart and people are giving her dirty looks and stuff. And then the lady behind her's like, let me help you.
Right.
You know, that simple gesture meant so much to her because it was a moment that she really needed help because
she was seen instead of being judged.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And why can't we do that more? Why can we not as women? We've all been there.
Everyone,
It was notorious. Mom knows this because she was usually the one grocery shopping with me. But when my kids were little, especially at the nursing phase and stuff, they never failed. They would always get hungry when we were trying to check out. They were fine the entire other time. And I always breastfed my babies. So it's like, well, how am I going to do this? And most of my kids didn't like the baby carriers, so it's not like I could put them in a baby carrier and nurse them and then still try to have one hand free. So it was just kind of, you get creative.
Creative in the checkout line.
Yes, exactly. But it's funny. But I mean, be the person in the line that says, hey, let me help you. Or instead of giving the lady with the screaming kid, because you don't know what's going on. You don't know what their dynamics are or what's happening. Be nice to them. Smile at them. Oh, I've been there. It'll get better.
Exactly.
You know, be an encourager.
Encourage.
Instead of giving evil eyes and saying, well, you need to get your kid under control. Like, well, but you don't know what kind of a day they've had. You don't know if the child is sick. You don't know any of the situations. You don't know what's happening. So be gracious. Show grace.
Yeah, please.
And that may never show up on Google. But that's a way to show love, you know? It's a way to show other people the love of Jesus.
Absolutely.
Please go on to our Facebook and tell us who your favorite Women's History Month hero is. We would love to hear your stories, even if it is a personal story of somebody that's affected your life as a mentor. We'll share stories. Anyways, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you've had a wonderful time. We'll see you next week in the Simply His Coffee Shop.